as well as stormwater utility.
Yes.
With some of the secondary options being things such as SPLOST, impact fees, aid to construction, grants, other types of things like that. So
GFA loans.
kind of will be clear that that the stormwater utility is not necessarily going to,
Right.
in and of itself, fund everything that needs to be
Right.
funded for stormwater
And
management.
because I know somebody's going to pick up on what I just said, the GFA loans, a lot of them are principal forgiveness. Did I say that correctly, Bobby? Okay, so it's kind of like a loan. I mean, kind of like a grant. So just, I don't want anybody hitting the, oh my God, they're going to get more loans. We're not. So just, I wanted to throw that out there as well. The recommendation is to use that CIP money to make it go as far as we possibly can, i.e. tagging some of these infrastructure grants that we're seeing and things of that nature to move ahead, which is going to spawn another conversation that we collectively as a body need to have, is a clear direction on where your priorities are in the grant world. Okay, so we do need to have those conversations. So I just want to throw that part out there, and I'm sorry.
Well,
You want to say something?
yeah, Robbie, thank you for explaining and bringing everybody up to speed. And we have a former councilman back there that knows that we've been kicking this can down the road for a long time. It's about time that we get serious about this, because we're gonna have to do it. And only way we're gonna be able to do it is to get started, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, one of the ongoing conversations, like I said, that we've had is making sure that we're prepared as a city to move forward and utilize these funds, in an effective manner. We have a CIP plan with projected costs, but realizing that we don't actually have engineering or design, done on a lot of those projects. So, if we were to start collecting money tomorrow and, wanted to address, we identified, okay, these are our top, 5 or 6 priority projects. We're not going to be able to, next Monday start digging, because we're going to have to go, there are going to be some upfront design engineering expenses that have to occur. There may be wetland mitigation situations, DNR approvals for certain things that are in wetland or marsh areas, that, drainage outfall areas that are going into, protected areas like that will take some back and forth with, the appropriate agencies in order to actually get green lights to put shovels in the ground. But given that, I still want to make sure that we're geared up and able to move forward as quickly as possible, and that's what I've been talking to the staff about. Robbie and Bobby, definitely know we've had those conversations. So, but tonight I felt like it was really important, like I said, for us to kind of get this groundwork, everybody refresh their memory, where we are and why, and we have this list of projects, some of the projects from that original, but this one has been updated, the CIP plan in 2019, but even it, has some things that have been accomplished. I'm not sure where it's at on here, but the over on Mission Trace, is that, we got some of those things out for bid and out for construction right now, to those culverts and those types of things that would have certainly been a part of this plan. So things are getting done, but we're moving rather slowly because we don't have, the appropriate funding. And this is the mechanism that seems to be most popular across the state, most proven method for having something that's associated directly with, at least part of the benefit, the amount of runoff that's being created by properties, as a way to administer something that that everyone can see benefit from. There'll be benefit on city streets, from flooding, just in your general travel and those kinds of things, the culverts and those kinds of things are looked at. And obviously downtown, where we have heavy tree canopy, heavy tree coverage, leaves and moss and those kinds of things are constant, issues that, like I said, a street sweeper. And I know we've got one of those in the budget already. Those are, things that go a long way to keeping the culverts clean and the water moving. We have some problem areas in this town because this was essentially a swamp 250 years ago, a lot of it, and we still got a lot of it that is swamp. Our beloved Spine area is very self-evident, but after this rainstorm Sunday night riding around, there are areas with standing water and some of it intruding on some houses that, in hindsight, should have been built up, 5 or 6 inches higher, but they weren't, and we're not going to be able to address all those kinds of things because water has to go somewhere. And when it's a full moon, high tide, king tide, and or there's storm water backup, because this house was 75 yards from the marsh, but if it's high tide, the water's not draining into the marsh, it's coming from the marsh, as well as the rainwater. So it's not the cure-all to end all to every issue, to every individual's issue, but it's a larger master plan problem. It's a need for the entire community. And as Artie says, this can's got kicked to us now. And, I think we got the political will here to try to do something to address this problem that so many people have been, speaking to us about over the last 5 or 6 months. So,
what was we did a drainage study out at Crooked River. I think that was the one we.
You'll have a presentation on Monday night, not Monday night. No, it is Monday night. Monday night, June 2nd. You'll have a presentation on that. So.
No, I wanted to thank you for this. I think this was great. One of my concerns was, and that's why I brought up having that fee be lower, but it's actually a lot less of an impact than I thought on churches and commercial space and stuff. So, I think this was very eye-opening to me. I appreciate that presentation, and this kind of helps me give an overview of everything.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking forward to going forward and just, like Mr. Jones just said, just get this ball rolling.
Have we taken a look at, I know part of the initial plan was before we got a second ditch crew or before we got, we have more now, it's a different landscape. Have we identified which, say, Public Works budget employees would fall under the stormwater utility enterprise
That's
fund?
figuring you've got the one ditch crew is what we're allocating into that budget. There's also portions of other, I'm not saying this is what was going to happen, but if Ms. Remy's position is, if she takes on that role and she's in the community development world, so part of her salary would also come out of that as well. Some of Bobby's would, some of Alex would. So there would be some additional staff in there that would be a part of that as well.
And say we already have a street sweeper, if we've already budgeted for it and purchased it, but would that move over to the stormwater utility fund for maintenance of those items are different?
It can. We have the ability to do that, but that's not what we calculated. Our main focus on what we put in front of you tonight is on that ditch crew.
Gotcha.
So that was, and that's taking, you don't see a cost for vehicle. I think there's a dump truck in there, or two, one dump truck. That to operate that ditch crew is what we were focusing on out of the gate. But that frees us up down the road, if that makes any sense.
I'm just trying to think about how it affects our budget and how it could affect and the millage rate or the total amount, where if we have this fund over here.
Well,
for
you
this.
figure you're taking, to 1 million, you're taking $1 million. So that's, that's equivalent of $1 million. So it could have an effect. But it's, and to Mr. Wiley's point, I'm sorry, because if I don't say it, he's going to. It also protects that crew to to where if we do have something come down the pipeline and we do have to make cuts again like we did in 2010, that ditch crew is protected because they are in that, they're compensated out of that utility. Does that help?
It does, and I know that it wouldn't be a full rollback of your total fund from your millage rate because you're adding additional service and you're raising money for different capital improvements and stormwater,
Right.
so it wouldn't be 100% reduction from the budget to
Right.
what the enterprise fund creates.
Right.
You
Mr.
know,
Horton, I have a question. How are we prioritizing our capital projects in the plan? You've given us a list, I think, that shows $7.4 million, and then there's another schedule here. I mean, this work was done a while back, so are
The
we,
one that you have, it is fresh out of the utility master plan that was done in 22
this one?
or 23? Yes. It was recently done. And when I say recently, yesterday was,
So that's 1.5 million?
I'm sorry, I'm
Or
trying to,
1.9 million for 2019. Sorry.
hold on, it's okay.
I'll show you this.
Yes.
I'm just wondering how we're prioritizing all the many things that were identified in the study and how we arrived at the $219,000
The ones
for
that we put in-
CIP.
that we put
Right,
into that budget,
correct.
we pulled that because that's what we currently have going for this year, which is, I think, some of the engineer.
Dump truck in Auburn.
Yeah, CIP was dump truck and auger. For those in the audience that are online that didn't hear what Mr. Moore said, because
Okay.
didn't come up here.
But there is in the actual plan a prioritization of these projects that were done as part of the study from, was that ETM or whoever was
GMC.
GMC?
Right, so are we still using that prioritization? Or are we planning to go back?
Unless we have something that comes in that's gonna take a higher priority. I mean, we have things that come up that,
I mean, like I say, if those items have not been addressed and there's still issues, like, I think like Robbie said, it would be, my preference would be to utilize what funds we have available to actually making these repairs versus going back and spending money trying to figure out, should we start here or should we really do, I'd
Right.
rather be getting some things done than spending more money on studies to see if there's an
Agreed.
incrementally
Yes.
better place to spend some money. So, I think, we get started on a list of things we have, and when we start paring that down some, then we can study it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we study it again. I just, no.
One other comment
just-
I wanted to make, while we're still
No,
recording and
no.
everything, is that there was, some suggestions made by citizens about other mechanisms and other modalities on how to, assess the fee. One in particular, which was a very straightforward process of a percentage of property tax or something. We have learned, that if it is based off not the impact of stormwater on the property as in impervious surfaces or such, but rather just a property tax type thing, that it does then become a tax because it's based on an ad valorem situation and not a fee. And one of the ongoing issues and the way this policy was crafted, I think several of us have had conversations with Mr. Blackerby, as well as the very nice document that he forwarded to us all, that this policy was crafted, to avoid some of the litigation that has occurred across the state in the way these things are administered and funded. and that this fee-based process based on the impervious surface percentages has been like I said, upheld by the Supreme Court based off a case through the Athens-Clarke County area. So, while it may have some faults or things, this seems to be the proven modality, the best course of action to stick to this. We even talked about alterations in the funding schedules and those kinds of things, and it was advised that the best thing to do is just to stick to it very basically as it's proposed. There are a number of credits in the credit manual and different ways to mediate things, catch basins and converting areas, back to natural and installing impervious, driveways and those kinds of things versus, that might potentially have an impact on new development in particular. But so I just wanted to say that for the benefit of those that had proposed some other mechanisms for funding, that the reason we're sticking with this is that legal issue, that this is the prudent, safe way to go for the city. So
Again, Greg hit the nail on the head. There are all kind of funding mechanisms out there. Mr. Seals with his tennis courts and things, he's gonna get off like a fat rat because it's like having 2 or 3 homes where he is. But what we need to do tonight, is let the staff know that we wanna pursue this and we wanna start now and do everything we need to do to get this on the road, because ever since 2019 it's been going on and I'm tired of kicking the can. We need to get it done.
I do agree. I want to further pursue the avenue, but I'm definitely not ready to make a decision. I mean, you were on council, and for the time frame when it was worked on, and it looks like a little over 4 years of work was done, probably longer than that, of research and data. And it's here. This is our first session of getting all this information at one time. So I do think we would actually. I would like to have another work session on after we have a chance to ask some questions, get some data from staff, and have another discussion.
You can, and that's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Let's
but,
continue. Let's continue
path.
working on it.
Good.
Let's don't drop it here. And next year, this time we are right back where we are here.
Absolutely.
no, like I said, I agree. I think within 2 months or so, we ought to be more than adequately prepared and have the knowledge that we need in front of us to. Like I said, I want to set that fee level. I mean, $5 was what was recommended back, 5 years ago. Is that the number we still need to be at? And is that provide the correct funding? And
I think it's
I
the
think
fairest.
we just need to get to that determination as soon as we can, and then we'll be ready to put this before council and move forward.
Could we schedule a work session?
Yeah,
Just another one. Just
let's let Robbie and Bobby get together and see what it's going to take to kind of prepare that budget, those numbers, and do crunch some math, and then they can get back with us here within the next month, a work session.
Yeah, and just a small thing, not a large thing, like to consider. So, with the credits that you give, and then just the way we have to charge. So, like a developer, we're now wanting to require developers to have parks and things like that. If that creates an impervious surface like their pavement or anything for a playground, anything would I know that wasn't considered in 21, but like a credit for where they don't have to be penalized for creating a park that we required them to have.
But if they want to have a little lake, that would help them.
So it's something different than was there in 21.
And honestly, I think with a lot of the development that we're seeing, now granted a single house, that's a different story, but when we start talking about getting outside of that to where we have to pay attention to the larger scale, I think with the staff that we've got, and we've done a good job over the last 6-7 years of staying on top of that, with people. I know that in several of the developers that I've had personal contact with, that's part of the discussion we had. It's like, no, we don't charge for it yet, but you gotta understand, it may be coming. So you need to be thinking about that along the way. So they've gone and taken extra steps. I mean, and that's the reason the Park Service and the new parking lot, that's the reason they're going to Pervious Services. You know, we had that conversation with them saying, look, everybody likes blacktop, not, but that's a joke. So, but think about that going into it, and that was one of the reasons they went the direction they went. So we've been having these conversations for quite some time with our developers, making them aware of it. So I think that we're going to see, and especially how Ms. Stein has done it and her staff, you know, working with the developers and going, you know, yes, you can call it a retention pond.
Yeah.
But, okay, you can sell it as a lake. You know what I mean? So she's been working very diligently at helping them craft the image and the appropriate words for what we consider as stormwater runoff.
We have a relatively new administration within the school system, certainly since this was initially passed. And I know there's some things in there about education and the schools being able to get some credit for teaching educational classes and things on stormwater and some education credits. I thought I saw something in the ordinance when I read through that credit.
I'll have to dig back into it.
We need to dig back in that. We certainly need to make sure that the school system is aware of how this might impact them and their budget with the schools. And you know, they certainly have very large roof areas and parking lots, and
So does the city.
but I thought there was something in there about education credits or whatever for doing educational work in stormwater, and you know, so
I'll go back in and look at it.
y'all remember any of that?
No, I don't recall that.
Maybe I just made it up. Sounded good, no, but I'm pretty sure.
There's many ways of earning credits.
Yeah. Maybe it was in some of the other documents from the stormwater plan guide that we had that was done in other areas or something. But I know I read it. So,
That may very well be in the credit.
yeah, so, okay.
Trying to take advantage of any extra credit.
Anything else anyone wants to add? We adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, staff.